In studio with us, we have CS Treasury John Mbadi to tell us why our fuel costs so much, amongst many other things. Welcome, CS. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Mariam, and the rest of us, Latif and
Waboy.
Yes. Good morning. And good morning to Kenyans.
Hey, is it a good morning?
Good morning.
We'll get
It
into
will always good morning. Challenges will always be there, but you thank God for giving your life because that's the most important.
Very true. Let's get into the day with the quote of the day. Phalaris will share it with you really quickly, and then we can talk about the cost of fuel.
Absolutely. Today's quote is courtesy of Napoleon Bonaparte, who was a French military leader. And the quote reads, "Nothing is more difficult and therefore more precious than to be able to decide." Nothing is more difficult and therefore more precious than to be able to decide. CS, how does that speak to you this good morning?
Good morning. You know, I like that quote because really in our lives, decision is the most critical thing to make, and always will be confronted with conflicting positions. So therefore, you should have the ability always to make a decision. And the decision you make has implications going forward. If you make a wrong one, you live with it. If you make the right decision, again, then you can or you reap the benefits. Yeah.
It's a morning of decisions that have been made, and hence why we're seeing the situation as is. And it's only fair that we start this conversation with the state of, affairs as far as transport and energy is concerned. Now, EPRA, Kenyans woke up to craziest price hikes, and everybody's looking to government for a response. Schools are closed. People are not able to make it to work, yet here we stand with no official position from the government in terms of how this situation is being addressed.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me make it clear that what we are seeing is a bit unfortunate. The prices have gone high, that's a fact, and it is really hurting and it has hit the economy, leave alone even the strike that we see today. The general economic indicators will not be performing as earlier projected because with high prices, there will be high inflation. We will have a problem in interest rates. There may even be a problem going forward with our forex reserves, which may affect the exchange rates and with all the consequences. So this is a matter that we are really watching closely as a government, and we adjust and make decisions which are informed and not emotional decisions. This is not the time to make emotional decisions. I must repeat. When I attended the spring meeting in April, when actually there were still hopes that the war would stop quickly, but you could see the almost 80% of the discussion around that conference was on the impact of this US-Iran war. This is a war that we have not caused. It's a war that is caused by other people, but because we don't have the ability to stop it, it has to hit our economies. And my concern is that we are trying to solve a global problem applying domestic means, which I think is not appropriate. In my view, I think the strike is completely uncalled for, even though the prices of petroleum products have risen. It's completely uncalled for because we need to understand why these prices have gone up. Number one, if you take the prices of petroleum products on the 28th of February, 2026, when the war broke out, I will give you just one example. The price of diesel, what they call the Platts price or index price, without adding the premiums, was at 642 per metric ton. Now that has risen today to 1,120 per metric ton. That is an increase of 76% of the prices. Now look at how the prices have changed in Kenya. That diesel, the price from February to now has risen by about 55%. Therefore, it means that already the government has absorbed about over 20% before you bring in the premiums to the price. And the same with petrol. In fact, petrol, the government has even absorbed more. If we were to leave the prices without any intervention as a government, diesel today would be costing us not less than 35 shillings more. And petrol actually would be costing us over 70 shillings more. About 311 would be the price of petrol. So already the government has intervened. There may be calls for more intervention, but we have also to plan it out. Let me just point out this clearly. From April to now, how much has the government spent on trying to cushion or reduce the prices of petroleum products? We have reduced VAT on petroleum products from 16% to 8%. That is a loss of at least 12 billion per month. And that's for the 2 months, it is 24 billion shillings. We have also applied the fuel subsidy. And that fund had 17 billion at the start of this crisis. And this crisis started getting felt in April because we were still using the stock of the previous supplies and also the orders that had already been made. Now, if you take, again, in the month of April, we applied 6.2 billion. And then this month, we have applied 5 billion. In that kitty, we have just about 5 billion left to take us to the end of the financial year. Now, that is another 6.2 plus 5.2, another 11.2. Add to 24 billion, the government has already spent, so to speak, an expenditure of 35 billion in 2 months. And this is a crisis that we don't know when it will end. And so, it is not something to really politicize, in my view. And I understand this very clearly, Latif. When I was coming here and I told some of my friends, 2 of them, that I was coming to discuss, that I've been invited to discuss this fuel crisis, they thought I was making a mistake, that I shouldn't even talk about it. But again, in leadership, you must confront difficult situations and explain to people and explain to Kenyans exactly what is happening so that we find a solution based on facts and objectively. Instead of just criticizing that nothing is happening, we have done something. We may do more. The government will discuss if we can do more. But you have to balance it off with the entire macroeconomic fundamentals. And I will come to tell you that our budget is also facing a strain. So there is a limit you can go.
What's the limit? What's the limit? Because so far, what you're telling us is by foregoing 24 billion shillings on VAT in those 2 months,
right,
and by, well, spending, this is money, the Petroleum Development Levy really, I don't say an expenditure in government. This is money that we put into a kitty for such rainy days.
Correct.
Right? In every time we're buying fuel. So it had 17 billion shillings, you've already drawn down 11.2 billion shillings. It's okay. From the 24 billion on VAT, on tax, on direct tax, what is your limit? How much can you push on foregoing tax and cutting down on the expenditure side so that you can cushion Kenyans?
Well, Latif, how much we can go is not something that I would just tell you that we can go this much. We have to sacrifice, and we have to decide as a country the level of sacrifice. You know, when you are in a crisis situation, you sacrifice. And the limit of sacrifice cannot be determined by one day event. Depending on how this crisis continues in the Middle East, we may end up sacrificing more. And you have talked about cutting expenditure. It is easy to say that we can cut expenditure, but a lot of our expenditure lines are so inflexible. I will tell you, even if I take you to the next year's budget, which you have seen. Out of the money that we collect, the 3.63 trillion that we are likely to collect, 1.5 is going to go into debt repayment. You have no latitude there. And about another trillion, I mean, am I talking about billion or trillion? 3.6 trillion. 1.5 trillion is going to debt repayment. 1 trillion will go into paying salaries. There is no flexibility there. We have about 4, so that leaves you with 1.1. Now, out of the 1.1, 420 will go to counties. That leaves you with less than 700 billion. And you have not brought in other recurrent expenditure that cannot be delayed. You have not brought in CDF that goes to our constituencies and many others. And that you have not even touched development. And part of that, our development budget is so inflexible because they are donor funded and donor negotiated. And you also have to bring in what we call the counterpart funding for those projects to proceed. So you have to balance all these things. There's areas you can cut a little. And by the way, even in the security sector, that I've been asked sometimes, you put so much money.
You keep adding money.
Yeah, you keep adding money. But look, we are in an environment, we are in a fiscal position in this world that exposes us a lot. We are neighboring Somalia here. You can see there is a crisis in Sudan and the rest of the region. If we don't spend money on security, especially on NIS to gather intelligence, we may not even have an economy the following day. So all these interests have to be balanced. And that is why we said, yes, let's reduce VAT to 8%. We have already absorbed that. We are absorbing it. You are right. In terms of the fuel subsidy, that is the role for which it was meant. But again, you can only go so much, because what is in the budget, what had remained at that time was 17 billion. We have already spent 12 billion. We still have a few days left to the end of the financial year. Next financial year, we can over budget in that fund, because it is a fund that is created through a statute, and the amount allocated for it is defined by law. So you may find that if this war progresses for another 1 year, we will spend so much and we'll exhaust the fund. We'll have to then cut other levies. If we cut other levies, it's going to hurt the budget. So we have to balance off all this. And it is not something that you wake up one day, like another friend of mine woke up one day and is telling us, remove the 7 shillings. He knows very well. He's a member of parliament. He knows very well that 7 shillings is not available. That money has been securitized, and that is what has unlocked the road construction that we see in this country. Today, you don't hear the public talking about the president is launching roads and they're stalling. Those roads are going on, including the Mau Mau roads that they started. So many of them are now going on. They would have stalled one boy.
Okay, hold on. So I hear you. What you're
yes.
saying is that you are caught between a rock and another rock, and that you are somewhere where you really can't squeeze anything out of it. And so therefore you're asking us to squeeze. Hold on.
Latif, can I just correct that? I am not saying we can't squeeze something, but it's at our price. And that is why the government cannot just rush into emotional decisions. We have to look at what is the possibility of this war dragging even further. So if we are taking action today, Waziri, for how long?
But Waziri,
yes,
it is, we knew when the war started that it's going to have an impact.
Correct.
Okay?
correct.
So you definitely sat at cabinet level and you started projecting the impact. You're even telling us, you went to Washington the other day,
yes,
and that's the whole, everybody, for the World Bank and IMF conversations, that's what everybody from across the globe was discussing. So even coming back home, you knew that this is the issue to deal with. It is not a one-day thing, Waziri, the way you're putting it. That, you know, the one day we wake up and make a decision. No, you've had more than 2 months to make that decision. We are where we are today because of the decision that you've made over those 2 months. And Kenyans are asking, is this the best decision that this government of ours could have made? Right? I want to come back and look at the price and the tax.
The components, yeah.
Right? And then you tell me, what is the inflexible bit there? And so, therefore, what from our side of our budget, where we also don't have, you know, flexible income, what do you want us to do to flex so that we can afford to live this life? It's 29 minutes. It's actually 7:30. The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Economic Planning, John Mbadi, is our guest. We also have our reporters on the ground, and we have been showing what we are showing on the road, and we're also seeing very many people who are telling us what's happening on the roads. Let's take this quick break. When we come back, we'll sample some of what you're saying on the road about the situation on the roads.
To tell us where you are, show us what's happening as far as the Matatu strike is concerned. If you're able to get any form of public transport, if you're walking, if you're staying home. We're looking at Waiyaki Way, footage from Waiyaki Way right now, and it just looks pretty clean. For the
Just
most
a
part,
walking nation.
It does not look like a Monday morning. It does not even look. Even Sunday, it's somewhere in between a public holiday and a Sunday.
Like a Christmas
like
day.
Christmas period.
No. There are very many people on the road. On a public holiday, you wouldn't have this number of people
walking.
Actually,
That's true. That's very
so
true.
many people who are just walking. This is Ngong Road as well now.
Just one Matatu. Okay.
Yeah.
That's coming down onto Nairobi Hospital. That's City Mortuary roundabout. And just that one Matatu. Everything else. You know, even the lack of traffic just tells you how thick things are.
I think.
Situation on Thika Road, this is how it looks like. And the Thika Superhighway, so it's just the personal vehicles that are applying this route. No Matatus on site, a few border borders as we can see, but Matatus, no. And this would be a time when the Matatus would be very, very, very many. And so this road would be very busy at such a time. So that's how the situation is looking like everywhere. And everybody who's just getting online and asking us, so what does it look like on the roads? This is what it looks like. Matatus, not many, just a few Matatus on the roads. And of course, those have hiked their fares. Like we were told by Migok earlier, as stretch that they normally charge 100 bob, they're now charging 200. So double the fare. Will people be able to afford it? And those are just the ones who've decided, let's operate today. Many have decided not to operate. Not many, even taxis have also, many of them have decided not to operate. Even borders have also, many have decided not to operate. We can see a lot of feedback coming in. People just saying, telling us the situation from wherever they are, as well as them reacting to what the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury is saying. As we get back into this conversation on CS, let's just compare the price of petrol, where the subsidy was not applied this time. The petrol landed in Mombasa at 117 shillings and 82 cents equivalent. 117.82 cents. This is according to EPRA. And then we start adding things. So the first thing, of course, we add is storage and distribution, which is 4 shillings and 99 cents. Then oil marketing margins, which combined are 17 shillings and 39 cents. Wholesale at 6 shillings, and in retail and operating margin at 11 shillings, right? So, and then now we come to taxes, and taxes are a combined 74 shillings. That is more than the oil marketing margin and the transport cost. It's 74 shillings. Out of 117 landing at Mombasa, 74 bob is taxes. Excise duty, 21 shillings and 95 cents. Road maintenance levy, 25 shillings. Petroleum development levy, 5 shillings and 40 cents. Petroleum regulatory levy, 75 cents. Railway development levy, 2 shillings and 24 cents. Merchant shipping levy, 3 cents. Import declaration fee, 2 shillings and 80 cents. VAT, this is at 8%, 15 shillings and 87 cents. That is what is taking the price of petrol to 214 shillings and 25 cents. Having landed at 117 and 82 cents. Very huge spike. Diesel is at 242.92, even despite fuel stabilization of 14 shillings and 57 cents. And 51 cents rather. And kerosene has gotten an injection of 91 shillings and 29 cents, stabilization. That's why the price is at 152 and 78. This is still very high if you look at just the taxes component of it. And you're saying you need these taxes to run the government. But then if you pass on these costs to the consumer who is supposed to be paying you the other taxes, are you going to be able to get anything out of it? If Matatu operators and others are saying, we can't, because we can't hike the fares, because people will not afford. So what's the balance here?
So the balance is what I'm saying. You have to look at the consequences of what you take, the decision you take. The 74 shillings could be high. And of course, it would have been higher if we added another 15 shillings of VAT. So that would have taken it up to about 89 shillings. And then we have the fuel subsidy, which has also already subsidized the price. It would have been much, much higher. Now, this 74, you can forgo part of it or all of it. But what is the effect on our budget? We have a budget that is running up to June. It is inflexible. You cannot go and start saying, I will stop paying salaries because we have high prices of fuel. You will not stop our security operations. You will not stop transferring money to counties. You will not stop paying our debts. So that is why we looked at we took a decision at a time we saw the prices were going to be high, and we reduced the VAT to 8%. That was a decision that we took, and already we have absorbed that 12 billion times 2. And we are going to absorb it further, because from June, again, going into July, we will still be operating within this financial year largely. So it is already something that we have absorbed. The government could be discussing, and I said the other day that we will again sit down and review with the president, but it is not something to be done with emotions. You have to look at the consequences. When you reduce further VAT, where are you going to cut? Which part of the expenditure are you going to cut? You can see today, I read in the papers, and Parliament is up in arms that we are not giving them enough money, and yet we have allocated 48 billion for Parliament, you know? And every other institution in this country, every other MDA is complaining about low budgetary allocation. So you have to balance all these instead of, and you don't know when this war will end. That is something else. In fact, Latif, you said before we went to the break that we had 2 months to project. Let me tell you, this war has been difficult to predict. You don't even know what will happen tomorrow because there are a lot of communications that sometimes you hear there is a peace, ceasefire, temporary. Then tomorrow that ceasefire does not exist. You hear people are going to Pakistan to discuss. Then you hear there is no discussion. So this, and then there is Strait of Hormuz is blocked, and that is where the bulk of fuel for African countries come from. Now our oil marketers have been forced to go elsewhere to look for fuel, and the distance and the freight. But fortunately for us, we had this G2G. The G2G has helped us in the sense that the freight charges is much, much lower than what it is in our neighboring countries, because we are at $88 per metric tons. The others are now at 250. But again, all that is still being absorbed by the high cost of fuel from the origin to when it lands here. And so we can only hope that this war will end. But as we hope, and it is not ending, we take some decisions. I am sure as a government we'll sit again when the president comes back and convince he will have to look at what else can we do. But let us not be emotional about this.
We have
hard not to be emotional when you're walking to work. Essentially, when you are unable to, your children can't go to school. We had so many fixers saying, are my children staying home today? There's also people in need of medical services who have an appointment, could be an emergency situation, could be a weekly appointment, a monthly appointment. Another fixer was talking about seeing how many people are walking to KNH today who ordinarily would have taken a matatu. So hard not to be emotional because these are people's lives. Let me finish. It's people's lives, essentially, that are being disrupted. And you've talked about us seeing it from the government perspective. You've broken down exactly how much room we have to stretch, how much further we can go. But for Kenyans, there's also no room to go. Let's put CS Mbadi in the shoes of a Matatu operator. You've talked about foregoing a lot of revenue in the billions, trying to cushion Kenyans, which is very, very true. But the Matatu sector is also contributing almost 1 billion shillings, daily, just moving through the daily life. That's a massive sector of the economy for Kenyans. When you stop for 1 day, 2 days, however long this strike will take, that's a massive hit to your economy. You're also a Matatu operator who cannot pass on the added cost of fuel to the consumer because people will just not take the Matatus. They'll stay at home or they'll walk or they'll figure out some other way. Put yourself in those shoes. What are they meant to do as well?
But you see, that recognizing that fact, that's why we have taken the decisions that we have taken. That's why we have reduced VAT to 8%. That's why we are applying the Petroleum Development Levy to cushion the prices. And that's why the prices are where they are. They would have been much higher. But again, I am not saying nothing can be done, but you have to balance off. That is what I am saying. There is a balance of scale. And again, emotions that I'm talking about is not about someone who is walking to work. It is about the decision now to call the strike. In my view, it was not necessary to call the strike. You are saying the Matatu operators, have we had an engagement with these Matatu operators? Have they approached the government? Have they spoken with us and we have explained to them like now I'm explaining? And then they say that there is nothing else that the government can do. We haven't had that engagement.
Did you engage them? Who is to engage who here? Because essentially, EPRA is the one giving us a price review on the 14th, going into the 15th. They know who it affects the most. The Matatu operators don't know what EPRA is going to do. They don't know how far the price will increase or decrease. So is it government to engage Matatu operators or Matatu operators to come to government foreseeing that there could be a price increase? It's government.
Let me tell you, don't think strike is the solution. Look, the price of petroleum products have increased everywhere in the world. Go to the US, which is a net exporter of petroleum products. They have increased by 80%, and I can give you the figures. Even in our neighborhood, I've had people say that prices of petroleum products are cheaper in Uganda and Tanzania. Where is that evidence? I saw the former Attorney General and my former Speaker, my good friend, Muturi, is talking. But you see, get at the facts. The facts I have here, before the recent adjustment, in Tanzania, the price of diesel was at 4,248 Tanzanian shilling, which is way above the Kenya. If you convert it into Kenya shilling, the price of diesel is 217, when in Kenya it was 196. The price of petrol was at 210, while Kenya it was 197 before the recent adjustment. And I will tell you the reason why sometimes Tanzania and Uganda are behind us. Actually, when prices start to drop, Kenya will drop faster, because they will be behind in terms of the story, in terms of the stock. Uganda is still consuming February and March stock. We are in April stock. And the reason is Kenya is a big economy. We consume double Uganda supply of petroleum products. So they would be behind us in terms of price adjustment, but they will adjust anyway. In the next, Uganda is a free market economy, but Tanzania controls prices like Kenya. They will adjust automatically, and it may be higher than Kenya in the next review for Tanzania. So there is no evidence. In fact, diesel, if you compare February, before the war, and May, the prices increased by 56% for diesel in Tanzania. Petrol was at 48%. In Kenya, it is 55% for diesel and 35% for petrol. We are much lower in terms of increase of price between the two countries. So it is not true that our neighbors are selling petroleum products cheaply. Yeah. And it is, in fact, in other places, it is even about the supply. There is no supply. At least for us, we have these 3 oil marketers who source for fuel. Even in India, they go elsewhere to look for fuel and suppliers because they have a contractual obligation. There are countries which now have no supplies at all. They have run dry. So these are things that we have to look at. Yes, I know Kenyans are suffering. I am not happy to see Kenyans walking. Maybe I'm privileged, I can't walk like them. But it's not that I'm not aware that they walk. I came from my house to here. The roads are clear. The Matatus are gone on strike. But is that the right decision to make? Because again, it is like now you are biting the same finger you want to heal. Because now the economy is going to be hit further. When the economy is hit further, we have even now no resources even to subsidize that kind of subsidy that you want. Right. So it is a catch-22 situation that we must debate and discuss soberly. That is what I'm calling for.
Yes, sorry, Mariam. No problem. It's very easy to be sacked in an office somewhere and looking at this on a macro sense, because what you've explained to Kenyans is the macroeconomics of this. To someone who's standing at a stage in Githurai, them they don't want to hear 56% was reduced and then a further what was reduced. For them it is, what are you doing right now? Are we going to end up in the same situation next month when there is a review and EPRA says, sorry, we don't have enough in our coppers to be able to cushion you because Treasury has said we don't have enough in the subsidy kitty. The president has said we cannot reduce VAT further. Kenyans want to hear from you. You are an authority. You remember the quote that we read at the beginning of this is, you are the person mandated to make a decision. Kenyans want to hear, is there going to be a mitigation to this crisis? Are we putting in stopgap measures to make sure that for the next 6 months, someone is not thinking about how their bill of electricity is going high? They'll go to the market, they have to buy something for X amount. Point is, what is it trickle-down effect to the Kenyan who is sad? We've not even gotten to the finance bill, which every other Kenyan right now is just like, what can we expect from this? What is the thing that Kenyans can hold you to right now to say that, fine, today I'm walking, but tomorrow government is going to wake up with my best interests at heart?
Wamboi, first, I am not just a minister who sits somewhere in the office and takes decisions. Probably I'm one of those ministers of finance that this country has ever had who has closer interaction with the ordinary mwananchi. I have represented people. I still interact with people. This weekend, I was in the village throughout, and I've engaged with people. And in one of the rallies, a gentleman came with a bottle of fuel and carried it to me that, Mbadi, what are you doing about this? So I understand the sensitivity of this matter. And that is why I took it upon myself to come and debate it. When you told me it will be one of the subjects of discussion, I gladly accepted, because we have a responsibility. I am in the decision-making position. We have taken the decisions that we have taken. We have not just been quiet about this problem. It is a crisis. And I have said, we are going to still again sit further. In the month, the reason why we decided to stagger the application of the 17 billion, 6.2, 5, and then we still have 5 in the kitty to take us to the end of June, was in anticipation that going forward, even other months will still require cushioning. We could take a very populist decision in April and cushion Kenyans 100% without any price adjustment. But to come to May, what would have happened? We would have then passed on the entire burden to the people of Kenya, and it would be a worse crisis. Now, the same would happen in June, but we have been pragmatic enough to say, let us apply 6.2 in April as we watch the development in the international stage. Then come May, we found there was still no answer, no solution to this. Bring in another 5 billion to cushion. Then in June, if this passes, we put another 5 billion. We are hoping that we are going to get into the next financial year now with a new budget. Now, on taxes, because that is the only other option available for us. Because we can't control the prices where they come from. On taxes, we started with VAT. We are looking at the impact of that. And I'm telling you, that 12 billion is not a small amount, especially in the budget of Kenya. I have now managed it for about 2 years. I know what I'm talking about. We have a very inflexible budget. In fact, sometimes I'm saying, why did we pass so many legislations pegging our budget to percentage, to the extent now you have no leg room at all to adjust much. But be that as it may, as a government, I am very, very sure and certain that we are going to review this development and see if the next review we can factor in more interventions. If this war is not going to stop. And that is not a government that is irresponsible, not responsive. We are responsive. We study. The only thing is, don't move with populist mind.
No,
it is very
that's
easy.
exactly what you've done. You know.
Yeah.
CS, respectfully, you are poor at communication, and this is not John Mbadi. This is the government. It is very poor at communication, and everything that appears this government to be doing, it is responding to populist pressure. This pressure of today, of Matatus going on strike, of the country grinding to a halt, you've said you're waiting for the president to come back from Azerbaijan so that he can convene a meeting and address this issue and see what else can we do. That is reactive.
It's very reactive.
The last time, you advised EPRA that you could reduce VAT from 16% to 13%. And that same day, in what completely appear to be a populist move, the president makes a roster declaration, says we are actually dropping it to 8%. 16 to 13 to 8. That, if it was John Mbadi, the opposition MP, would have called it a very populist move.
100%.
This is a government that is not telling us what it's doing. It's a government that is looking at the situation and then saying, let's do something. And then come out tell us, oh, no, we have thought through this thing. This is what we have done. It is not what you have done. It is what you have not done that is speaking louder. Yes.
Latif, first, let me correct you on the pronouncement of the president to 8%. You see, we sat in a meeting convened by the president. After that meeting, the president tasked me to convene another meeting at the National Treasury, which I did, of 2 ministries, Energy and National Treasury. EPRA and everybody else was present. In fact, that is where we got to discover so many other things that we were not aware were being done by EPRA and maybe KPC, and you saw what happened. Let me break it down. We agreed that I gazette a reduction in petroleum, in VAT. The law only allows me a limit. I could not reduce beyond 12 shillings. So when we discussed, then I put out the advert to reduce it as we had agreed. But then we looked at it, the prices were still going to be high. And then the president asked whether we could reduce it further, and then we were clear that the law does not allow me, as John Mbadi, as a minister, to do it. And the president then made an announcement that the matter is now going to Parliament. And actually, Parliament was convened in a record day, and they implemented the 8%. So that was a parliamentary approval, because that is the requirement. Even now, for us to go to 0, Parliament has to be involved.
Very true.
If we have to go to 0.
And
Or
this
if we have to go from 8 to 4. So we are not reactionary. And again, Latif, let me just allow me to say this.
Wait.
Yes.
That is not something that you learned on the night of the 13th or the 14th. You know, the law limiting you are a seasoned legislator. You know that the law limits the cabinet secretary only to this extent. That things were happening behind the scenes in EPRA and Kenya Pipeline just shows that this is a government that was not aware of what its own work. That the president now makes an announcement on the 14th and Parliament is hurriedly convened and Parliament passes this legislation in record time just shows that this is a government that's reactive. You had weeks to do that. You at least had 3 days, even at the very least. You know, we have received all the prices here at EPRA.
Yeah.
Now this is the impact. Can you reduce the VAT to 8%? Yes. Let's start on the 10th. Move to Parliament. Say we want to reduce VAT. So by the 14th, you have VAT at 8%. Everything else that you're telling us, yes, and you know it. You know it. It's reactive.
Not reactive. First of all, Latif, I think you are also looking at this matter like it's a straight line, concluded, understood. This is a crisis that you don't know when it is ending. And by the way, we expected this crisis to have gone away some time back. It's not going away. So we will still continue to respond to it. It's like COVID. No one knew when COVID would stop. And when it struck, we didn't know the extent. So you have to adjust. And we made adjustment even during COVID period and the war in Ukraine. Different decisions were taken on daily basis. The same with this. We have to readjust and look at the dynamics and what is playing out. But let me explain to you what happened with the price adjustments in the month of April, because I can see umekwamilia hapo. You see, first, this issue of officers, you know, there are rogue officers in the government. And this matter, I don't want to talk about it because it is elsewhere, okay? I don't want to talk about a matter that is going to be canvassed. Okay. But when you are told that the costing, the ships that are coming are these ones, it is G2G, you don't know there is another ship or 2 or 3 or 4 which are more expensive, that the prices will be factored in. So you work with that understanding and you feel like if we lower the prices, if by gazette notice by the cabinet secretary, it will be enough to cushion significantly. And by the way, we cushioned significantly at 12% or 13%. In fact, that's why I made the decision to put it at 13%. But then when you realize that there are some other dynamics that are causing the price to be even higher, the president must be responsive enough. He's the head of state. And he said, no, let us go below the 13% or 12% allowable for the cabinet secretary. And that now calls upon Parliament to step in. And he did the right thing, announced that we want this to go to 8%. And then Parliament came in and ratified that the following day. Parliament is also responsible because they represent people. So to me, I don't see anything wrong with that. And we can respond, even going forward. We can still respond if we feel something is not working very well, it's affecting inflation, it's affecting our people, we can go that route. And of course, when we go that route, something else must suffer. And that is what I'm saying. We must balance all this.
We've said communication is key. Let's take a really short break. When we come back, we'll go line by line in the taxes and levies that make up to 79.80 shillings in the cost of fuel.
I think he did read them. Unless,
he did.
So
he read them.
Why would we? Because
no,
you see,
he read them.
I don't think.
I want us to. No, because we're looking for relief, right? He read them out, but I don't think Kenyans understand when you say road maintenance levy, petroleum development levy, what these things do and where we can look for reprieve. I think it's okay to go through line by line saying, Hapa, this is why we're inflexible on this. And if not, we ask why we're not flexible on this and that. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back with CS Mbadi. We'll also take a look at the roads. Laban Shaban is still around Thika Road, telling us that the situation is escalating. In some places, cars are not being allowed to pass by. We'll take a link with him in just a minute. Yes, strike. We're in studio with CS Mbadi from Treasury discussing exactly why we are where we are, and we'll get into other politics in a minute. But just before, the reason I wanted to get into the various levies that go into the cost of a litre of fuel is because we are looking for reprieve. Any of these, whether it's the road maintenance levy, excise duty, the petroleum development levy, the petroleum regulatory levy, the railway development levy, import declaration fees, and shipping levies. All of these things go into the cost of a litre of fuel. Where do they go? Are any of these ring-fenced for their specific purposes, or do they just go into a general kitty and then feed towards the national budget? Because I'm looking for where we can look for reprieve. Something like the railway development levy helps fund railway infrastructure. Is it ring-fenced for this particular purpose, such that we can say, you know what, things are thick right now. If we have a little bit of a buffer, we can suspend the railway. I'm not saying that that's how to do it, just thinking out loud, Waziri.
Yeah, but you see, most of these levies have a purpose. That is what they were meant to achieve. Like road maintenance levy, you will agree with me that the same Matatu operators would complain if there are potholes on the road. And we need that levy to maintain our roads. Right now, it has been raining, and most of the roads have been washed. They've been destroyed. You need to maintain them. This is the money that you use or you spend in maintaining those roads. So the 18 shillings that is applied per litre is meant to go into maintaining our roads. So you want to ask yourself whether you compromise on that road maintenance and for how long. Because again, this war, we have no idea when it will end. You might say, yes, for a moment, suspend it. So you suspend it for how long? If you suspend it for a year, maybe the war takes a whole year. Where will you have money to maintain the roads? And will Kenyans listen when you tell them that now we cannot maintain our roads because the money that was meant for road maintenance went into cushioning the petroleum products? So these are decisions that our government has to take. When we talk about the other
Railway
levies like
maintenance
railways
levy.
maintenance, again, you remember we had done quite a bit in railway. The SGR, and we are doing even the MGRs across. And this needs also maintenance and needs to be put into positions or conditions they can be used effectively. Now, you have also to make that decision. On the others like excise duty and the rest, they come into our budget to finance our budget in ordinary way. And again, looking at our taxes, our ordinary revenue is shrinking. Is going down. We have be a heavy informal sector. We are trying to improve there to be able to have more efficiency in tax collection, but it is still difficult. And we are making reforms, and the reforms will not bear fruits in a day. So we have a lot of challenges here, and that's why I thought I should come and just communicate it. Maybe it is not a one-day communication that will help fix this, as Latif said it, but we can start somewhere. I have started by saying we have done something. Value-added tax was the highest percentage if you look at all these. Actually, the biggest component is VAT. By lowering it by 50%, you have reduced the price by about 15 shillings. These others you will find is 4 shillings, maybe they are still 17. But the biggest is VAT. So we have looked at that VAT. Is there room to look at it further? That is something that we are considering.
Right.
Maybe in the next review. But it has consequences, because if we apply more, then we'll have to cut somewhere. So that is where we must check. Where do we cut?
Just as we the reason I asked if any of these are ring-fenced is because is there a way for me to tell that this road maintenance levy goes into maintaining roads, this railway maintenance levy goes into maintaining, or it just goes into this one big kitty and government goes through what it needs to do and pays off the checklist from debt to salaries to everything else?
It's a combination. There are some that are, maybe you can call it ring-fenced, are dedicated to specific, including the stabilization of prices, which we have applied. Like I've mentioned, the road maintenance levy and the railway development levy. But I would also say that apart from the 7 shilling, all these others you can make adjustments. You can pass a legislation and remove them, cut them, reduce them. But the bottom line is, as you do that, you must also consider other things. So
must bear the cost.
Yeah, but the 7 shilling is ring-fenced, and you can't change it. You can't tamper with it, because that is a right that we have sold as a country.
Okay.
Yes.
Give a final answer to everybody who is, all these people in the transport industry, people in the manufacturing sector whose diesel cost has gone up by that much, people across the country, or now this rise in fuel prices. What is the government prepared to do in response to this cry from the public?
Yeah, what the government is prepared to do is to monitor the situation. We have the next review by 14th of June. The government is not sensitive enough to look at that review and see the impact it will have. Right now, we know the price of petroleum products as they come, because the ships, the petroleum, the prices that will be announced in June already. We can determine the prices, because the ships have been loaded and all that. So this, we will look at the subsidy kitty that we have, the 5 billion, and look at if that is not going to be sufficient, if it's going to lead to higher prices, then what do we do? Then we may now come again and see if we can reduce the levy, especially maybe VAT. And if we reduce VAT, we will have to check then what do we cut in terms of expenditure? And that is a whole government approach. So what we probably need here going into June, what maybe we will advise, I personally would advise EPRA and the Ministry of Energy to do, is to communicate better to Kenyans as we approach June, so that they are not caught by surprise. You know, we have been used to situations where EPRA it keeps us in the dark. Just like we used to have the budget previously, where people were waiting in the at night for the following day's budget speech to know which prices would increase. That is not there anymore. Probably what now EPRA needs to do, learning from this experience, is to carry people along in terms of communication and tell them, yes, this is what we project. Look, the prices of petroleum products, what they call the Platts price, the index price is this much. The freight costs, I mean, the premiums will be this much. Out of that, the government is having a cushioning of this. Then the government can now determine, or we make a decision that are we going to reduce VAT further or reduce whatever further. Then Kenyans know that this is what government can do, and by June 14th, these are the range of prices that we expect is this much. Okay. So that, because I think when I saw the news, that price shocker or price hike, I think it is high time that as a government we learned that shouldn't be the case. We should not have a shocker. We should not have surprises.
Okay, let's move on. But
on petroleum products.
For the next month, prices will remain as is, clearly, until the next review. Yes.
Yes, that is the case.
Okay. Let's move on to matters now. Siasa kidogo. The weekend.
Tumemaliza siasa.
Hiyo ni maisha wa Kenya. Sasa now, hiyo si siasa, that is maisha wa Kenya. Siasa ni the kind of back and forth we've seen between some factions of ODM. Yourself talking to some members of the Raila family who you're saying are wanatumia jina yake sana. Their responses to you. We'll play those clips very, very quickly before we get Waziri's remarks and what's happening inside ODM at this time.
Baba alisema hivi, baba alisema hivi, baba alisema hivi. Kwani mimi kama kijana wa babangu hakuwahi kuniambia chochote.
You cannot keep us back. Baba said this. Baba did not say this. Where is that Baba now to give us the evidence whether he said or he did not say? Baba is no more. This is post-Raila era. We must be candid, we must be forthright, and we must chart our way forward.
People who are talking recklessly now, just because Baba is not there, I feel very offended as Baba's son to hear some of the comments people are making. And we said, number one, stop making comments about Baba's family, please. Yeah? Whether you're CS, whether you're PS, whether you're... No. Come on. We must be mature in our politics. Hiyo ndo nimesema. Haimaanishi nini ODM, nini viongozi, mko na magari, mko na msijui nini. Hapana, heshima sio utumwa. Ndio baba alikuwa akijua mimi si mtu wa kuongea sana. Mimi mtu wa uniambie nifanye hivi, ni hivi, tusonge.
You know, we have a party where someone, because she's sister of a party leader, she thinks she can also order us around. You cannot.
We would like to see, as Raila family, more participation of the Raila family within the ODM.
You think Oburu is old? You think Oburu is weak? I can assure you, I am not weak. Old is gold.
The National Treasury of the Republic of Kenya. The National Treasury of the economy of the largest economy in East and Central Africa is not a platform for you to abuse us and talk to us however you want.
All right. We've heard from Winnie Odinga, Raila Odinga Jr. We've also heard from CS Mbadi. We've also heard from youth leader Oburu Oginga. Just two sides of the fray. Let me begin with your statement, CS, which is, essentially you can't hold people hostage, always invoking the name of the late Raila Odinga. That would be true if the party was bigger than Raila Odinga, which seemingly is not the case, no?
I think we need to understand the genesis of this debate, and it's interesting that you've titled it Mbadi versus Odingas. I don't think that is correct. I can never be pitted against the Odingas or Odinga family, so to speak. I respect that family a lot. I started serving under Raila when I was a student, actually at the age of 20, and I never dropped that ball. Actually, if there's any one person who has listened to Raila, I'm one of them. I may not be related to him so closely by blood, but in terms of political engagement, we have been very, very close. So seeing that is actually hurting. I know there are people who may think that I've probably not been hurt as they are, but I know how the death of Raila did hurt me. And I think many people who are around me know that. So pitting me against the Odingas is not really right. But I just want to talk about the genesis of this discussion. This was a closed-door meeting, and in fact, it's unfortunate that one of us decided to make this a public debate. We first started, our leaders, or the party leaders, said, today we want to talk candidly, because we are seeing a crisis in the party. Now, a lot of debate went on. People from other regions actually pointed a finger at the Nyanza, more particularly the Luo community, that we are the ones who are bringing disunity and disruption in the party. To a large extent, I agree. A lot of noise is around that space. Look at Northeastern. They are calm. Look at the coast. There are no much problems. Even in Western, no much problem. Turkana, you don't see much problem. Masaini, there's no much problem. These guys support ODM. But there's a lot of noise and chaos and tension in our backyard, which should be the bedrock of the party. Now, in response, I actually said I agree with those people who are saying that ODM is not a tribal party. It is not a community party. And I went ahead even to say this is not a regional party. It's not a CIA party. Where you see we have already made the senator the party leader. Then the governor comes and also announces himself as a party leader, simply making it look like it's a CIA fight. And then I said, it is not a family party. And I pointed out, because I was not actually talking or backbiting my sister. She was present. And I said, you see, we had a lot of respect for Raila. And we have a lot of respect for Oburu. But the fact that my brother is the party leader does not give me that latitude to also come in and start ordering people around. And I had a reason to say that.
Was she ordering people around?
Now, pardon?
Was Ruth Odinga ordering people around?
I will tell you there's a lot. I don't want to discuss that because we had
just yes or no?
Yes, it is true. It is true.
What does ordering people around mean?
Let me tell you, Latif, the party knows. If I want to tell you something, if the people who are in Mombasa are diehard Raila supporters, look at when I made that statement. There was standing ovation. People came to hug me. If I said anything negative about Baba, I don't think that a crowd would have cheered me. I don't think that crowd would have come to embrace me. In fact, they would have booed me because I know how Raila is in the heart of the supporters. But let me put it this way. Raila Odinga built ODM, and I worked. There can be people who are closer by blood to Raila than me, people who are more Raila's friend than me, but I will tell you, there's no one living who ever managed the party longer with Raila than me. So I know where his heart was in terms of managing ODM. Raila Odinga did not intend to leave a family party. That could not be the Raila Odinga I knew. Raila Odinga did not intend to leave a regional party. He wanted ODM to be a national party that would live beyond him. And he kept on repeating it. So that is why I was saying, let us not invoke Raila's name every day. Raila has left us. And the legacy we can give Raila is to have a united ODM going forward. That is what he prayed for. And so if someone now decided to invoke emotions and portray for her own selfish interest that I said something negative about the Odinga family, I have nothing. I cannot help that person. I can only pray for that person.
You know, you're saying one thing on one side and then saying a different thing on the other side.
Which is this, Latif?
I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Are there, because you say that even though it's like you're speaking for a silent majority who came out to hug you, who clapped for you when you started saying this in Mombasa, and who also silently and privately are supporting you on this. Are you saying that direct members of the Odinga family have been trying to micromanage the party or influencing decisions of the party without involvement of other party members and rank?
You know, when we made Oburu Odinga the party leader, I don't think the consideration was just that he was Jaramogi's son or Raila's brother. There are other factors. Right? Oburu is the most experienced politician. Oburu, in our space now, Oburu is our elder. Oburu was very loyal to Raila. And I will tell you, from the time he got into politics, and Raila is his younger brother, so many people would have looked at their brother and said, I'm the one who should be in that space. He didn't. Raila also trusted Oburu, and that is why he made him assistant minister for finance. And he, even any negotiation, it was Oburu who was always in front. But look, there have been issues. There have even been family meetings, isn't it, to resolve some of the issues. And Latif, I wanted to not to go into the details of appearing like I am criticizing some behavior. But in my view, Oburu deserves some respect. And he cannot speak for himself. There are others to also protect him. We made Oburu the party leader.
Is he getting the respect that he deserves from Winnie, Junior, Mama Ida, Ruth?
They could do more.
Okay.
What they could do more.
What are they not doing?
They could do more.
What is Mama Ida?
I know I have not spoken about Mama Ida. I am
Junior.
very, very clear on what I'm saying. You get the clips of Ruth for her discussions, including the funeral at Nikal's home. So what I'm saying
So it is Ruth,
we need...
Winnie, Junior.
I'd not even talked about Winnie. In fact, Winnie brought herself into this. I don't know from where she came.
So it is
maybe
Ruth,
someone inside
Ruth
her.
and Junior.
And I will tell you.
You know, we are eliminating as you go.
Yeah.
Now we are left with Ruth and Junior.
You see, Latif, if you look at my speech in Mombasa, I talked about someone who was present. And it was Ruth.
Okay.
You are bringing in these other people, or they brought themselves. And I told Ruth very clearly, in her presence, that my sister, it is your brother who is a party leader. It's not you. And we think you should support your brother and support the ODM party for the unity of this party. I told her that. And she had the opportunity to respond. It's only that it has not come out. And it was a closed-off meeting. How that has become a fight between me and the Odinga family, I don't know.
Okay.
So what happened is someone who felt hurt decided to craft a strategy coming out to portray that there was an attack on Odinga family. There was none. If there was an attack, I will tell you, the ODM brigade in that room, you would have even heard by now some people condemning Mbadi. How come there is no one who was in that room,
So we've had
who has ever come out
and
to support the position that I undermined the Odinga family. There's none.
That's what
I did not
we're
do
only
it.
hearing from
I have
the
no
Odinga
intention
family.
to do that.
So let's start. Mama Ida, when she was speaking just recently, and she says they're asking, where is he now? You know, and you said, where is that Raila now?
Yes.
So it appears to be she's responding. She's referring to what you said. They're asking, where is he now? You know, and she even quotes the verses of the Bible and says, though one person is gone, but their name and legacy lives on. So you can't just assume that they are gone. That's Mama Ida. Then Winnie, at the funeral over the weekend in Kisii, says the National Treasury is not personal property. You can't just use it to order us around. Junior yesterday is saying similar stuff. So the Mama Ida family appears to be responding to you. Why are they responding to you?
Yeah, so Mama Ida, I think she probably was not given the right position of what I said. I heard her completely and I have not responded to her deliberately because I feel she did not understand what I actually said. She was given a version that was not correct. The reason why I asked where is Raila is people tell us, and you hear it many times, that Raila said this. I'm personally fed up with that statement because Raila spoke to so many of us and told us so many things, including some secret meetings where I went in Samburu with him. There are things he told us. But why would I keep on repeating that Raila said this and Raila is not here with us? So I said Raila is not here with us. And it is in that context. And is it not true that Raila is not here with us? Or is it English that I don't understand? Raila is no longer with us. He left us. And we are very pained with that. But there is nothing we can do. It's the decision of God. Now we are left here as his lieutenants. The best we can do is to maintain peace, unity in the party. Don't use his name to disrupt the party. That's what I said. And now how that turns around, like I am saying, now Raila is no more. It is interpretation that is meant to achieve some selfish short-term gain, political gain. Because pengine, what I told you pricked you. And that is exactly what I wanted. I wanted the person who is doing that to know that the ODM supporters are not happy. And I want to repeat it again. If what I said in Mombasa can be correctly construed to mean that I said Raila is not there and therefore it is, what is it that you are telling us? Those people would have not clapped for me. Those people would have not cheered me. Look at that clip. They cheered me, they hugged me, they gave me a standing ovation because I said what they felt was right, and which was this, that we need unity in ODM, that please don't invoke Raila's name anyhow, let Raila rest, let those of us who are left behind manage this party. Uburu is now stepping in as a party leader. He deserves respect. What Raila wanted is a functioning structure. In fact, apart from Uburu, all these party officials, Wamboe, Mariam, and Latif, were left by Raila. Raila was not stupid to leave those two deputy party leaders. He left the chairperson in office. So we have not even destabilized the party further. Now, on the issue of Winnie, I don't know what she was responding to. Because she started talking about, I think she wanted to say, I'm not doing very well at the Treasury. I don't think that is correct. I know how to balance myself. And by the way, I did not do interview to be a CS National Treasurer. I was appointed politically. I am a political animal. You cannot gag me, and you cannot take that away from me. I have big ambitions, which probably she also has. But I also want to be president of Kenya. And I move around. I talk to Kenyans. You cannot stop me and pigeonhole me on 14th floor even on a weekend to work on National Treasury. And by the way, as a CS, I go out there to also explain government policy because that is the work that I have. I have to communicate. How do I communicate sitting in an office and pushing papers? They did not employ a clerk. I am not a director general of budget or whatever. I am the CS. I am the minister. I speak to Kenyans. Here at the TV station, I speak to them at Jivanji Garden. I speak to them even in my boardroom. I speak in public rallies. And by the way, if you feel that I'm not executing my job properly, in fact, removing me from this office is the easiest than where I came from. You just talk to my appointing authority and you convince him that I'm not delivering. And I go home. But you cannot stop me from communicating to Kenyans. I will communicate. I will talk.
Okay.
So
If
that's
you
it.
win.
Hey, there's quite a number of fixers joining us online who had not caught the conversation on fuel. For about an hour and 15 minutes, that was our conversation with CS Mbadi. I would urge you to just press the rewind button, kidogo, and hopefully you'll get the answers we're looking for. The long and short of it is until the next fuel review on the 15th of next month, tuko hapa hapa. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. We've been with CS John Mbadi. When we come back, Deputy Party Leader of Jubilee, Jeremiah Kioni, is in studio.